Hello and welcome to SpeakEasy. We have a special guest with us today, Professor Nivedita Menon, freshly retired from the Jawaharlal Nehru University. She got a real fond farewell from her students, which many of you may have seen on social media. Academic, feminist, scholar, activist, everything rolled into one. And if you look at the internet, you'll find that she's a much loved teacher. So other than the slogans, whether she taught in LSR or in Delhi University, she's clearly a much loved teacher. And today we will be talking to her about her experience while teaching, the state of the country, the world, whatever she feels like talking about. Welcome, Professor Menon, to SpeakEasy.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you for inviting me.
So I thought you were a little emotional when you were, that those slogans of Jai Bhim, Lal Salam were sounding as perhaps it was almost your last day. So what were your feelings when your students were raising those slogans for you?
Yeah, it was actually quite spontaneous on their part. They had, this was the core group was a optional course that I had taught. And they organized a really lovely farewell where they weren't speaking about me, but about the course and about what they learned from the course and the readings and so on. So it was a really great farewell. And then I was walking out to my car and they said, the slogan suddenly started, you see. And yes, I did actually become emotional. And I think the reason that moment got the imagination of the social media, which I'm not on, but then I was because of this. I think it was not the exact people involved. I think that moment captured something for everybody. It captured a moment of hope and resistance and young people and the future. I think that sense of hope and freedom that moment captured and what the university can be, I think that's what was meaningful for everybody. And why? Because, the fact is that when teachers retire, there are hundreds, thousands of committed, brilliant teachers in this country, tens of thousands. And when you'll see a lot of retirement events are actually on social media. So it's not as if, and because these teachers mean something, they do something.
No, obviously, teachers have a very staying impact on people's minds and so on.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So I think what was special about this moment.
But I've seen on the internet even a lot of your students from LSR writing about you. It's not as if only your JNU students have. Yeah.
No, I was actually talking of the reception of that moment,
right,
in the larger world,
right.
Because I think there were two things. One is that JNU has been under such a horrific attack since 2016. Umar Khalid is still in prison and many other people. But what I mean is someone from JNU, Sharjeel Imam, these people are still in jail without trial for 5 years. So JNU has been under attack. The faculty has been under attack. I have personally been under attack among many others. So I think it was like a moment of vindication, a moment of hope, a moment of resilience and joy also. And for me, it was emotional because I wasn't sad. It was the kind of emotion that comes with
a sense of satisfaction, maybe?
Yeah, partly satisfaction, but more like it was a moment of the kind of tears that come to your eyes when your team wins. I don't enjoy sports at all. And here our team is the team that believes in a secular India, in an India that is just and fair and so on. That's our team. So there was a moment, I think, of that.
Right. So I want to ask you, you referred to JNU being under attack, and that's evident for anybody to see. But I want to ask you, when you joined JNU in 2008, what was the JNU then and what is the JNU now? Can you tell our viewers what's the difference? Because, sometimes you only read the headlines or you read bland reports. But I just like to know, what was the university like when you joined and what is it today?
So I don't want to romanticize anything pre-2014, nor India, nor JNU. So there are many issues as with any university. But despite all those issues, for example, faculty posts were not filled. Reserved faculty posts in particular were not filled. There were these kinds of issues which are very important, and there were many of us who were raising these issues. But what has radically changed from after 2016, when the new Vice Chancellor Jagdish Kumar took over, what changed was that we began to understand suddenly that this is what an authoritarian fascist regime looks like. Because between 2014 and 2016, even, it was Professor Supuri who was Vice Chancellor. And the kinds of things that happen routinely on campus, 9 p.m. hostel mess talks. Different groups would invite different people from all over Delhi and anyone visiting. There would every day at 9 p.m. some political group or the other, right wing, left wing, whatever, they would Ambedkarite, whatever group, there would be these talks in the mess that would go on for an hour and a half, discussions following. There was faculty was selected. There was a whole procedure by which faculty was selected. Selection committees, panels passed through certain kinds of procedures before they were finalized. There was that. Then deans and chairs were appointed by rotation, by seniority. What this means is that nobody had a fiefdom. If you're chair or dean by rotation, then it's your job to do it. It's
a democratic.
It's a democratic process. You're not seen as a powerful person. Nobody stands up when you enter the room because you're a colleague. You're a colleague who's taken. It was a responsibility, not power. It was seen as a responsibility that you had to fulfill. What happens after 2016 is all these things are dismantled. All hostel talks are stopped. In fact, now only talks that are cleared by the administration can get space inside in any seminar room. You will notice that all student group talks the venue is written as outside SSS1, outside SSS2, because we talk on the stairs outside. They don't give us room inside. And when this will be stopped, we don't know. At every event, security guards are around filming. And if you ask them, why are you filming? They say it's our job. And, it's their job. They have to get their salary. So we just let them do it. So the space and a number of events have been cancelled. The ambassadors there was an ambassador, 2 ambassadors were invited from, I can't now remember, but the West Asian Studies Center had invited 2 ambassadors from West Asian countries, and that event was cancelled at the last minute. Ambassadors were coming because there was a feeling that Palestine would be talked about. So there is a hard kind of a censorship going on in terms of any kind of conversation. 2, the appointment of deans and chairs is at the pleasure of the Vice Chancellor. Literally, the Vice Chancellor picks and chooses who. So now it's a post of power. It's a post where you have to please the administration, where you're pleased to please the administration. So there's that. Faculty are now selected by the Vice Chancellor directly. There is a selection.
You mean interview board?
There is a selection committee, but nobody from the center is usually on the selection committee.
You mean people from outside?
So there are 2 things here. Normally, the chair would be present, that of the center. So now the chairs are not present. They're not expected to be there, and it's very rarely. It's also very arbitrary. So if the Vice Chancellor decides the chair can be present, she can do that.
But she decides the board.
He decides. Now, the selection committee used to be something that was which was a large panel of which a few would be selected, but there was a procedure. But one of the first things Jagdish Kumar did was to introduce the idea that the Vice Chancellor can introduce people into selection committees. And that was the beginning of the end, because you have people who are there simply to stamp. So it's very evident that faculty appointments for the past many years since 2016 are decided in advance, and yeah, so faculty, so like
So, and I mean, are you trying to say that these are all ideologically loaded faculty members who are being hired?
yes.
So maybe 10, 15 years down the line, when the older faculty sort of moves on, so JNU will be principally dominated by right-wing
Yes.
Hindu teachers. Would that be?
Hindu is not the point. Hindutva and RSS is the point. It's not the religion.
Yeah.
So they're organizationally linked. Many of them were in the ABVP. Many of them were students of JNU in the ABVP, and then they are appointed as faculty. So it's a very clear ideological agenda, and they seem to think if this comes up, when the left did it, it was okay, and when we do it, it's an issue. No, when the left didn't appoint people from the left; they appointed intellectuals.
When the left itself was so divided. I mean, it's not as if
there was one exactly.
There's never been,
Yeah, but what I mean is that people were not selected for their left ideology. They were selected for their scholarship, for their books, for their writing. But now the people who are coming in have no qualifications other than that they owe allegiance to the Sangh, and they make it very clear. They're very open about it.
They're very open about it.
Oh, they're very open. That's their job. They've been brought in to do this. So
scholarship doesn't matter. It's your ideological commitments that. So then what will happen to JNU? I mean, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line? Because remember, I mean, we should also, remind our viewers that there are 2 cabinet ministers in Mr. Modi's government who have studied in JNU. It's quite rare for one university to have, and donning the foreign affairs and finance portfolios. It's not no mean achievement for JNU.
Well, I've always found that very difficult to boast about. I know
it's not a boast, but it's a fact.
No, but I know. But see, the point is not what will happen to JNU. The point is what is happening to the university system. And all over the country, public universities are being destroyed. Private universities are permitted, but private universities also come under the control of the regime, obviously, because they also...
Telephone calls are made there also.
I'm sure telephone calls are made there. I am not party to this information, but I'm sure appropriate telephone calls are made as and when necessary. And what is happening to the public university system is that one is, as I said, through faculty appointments, which has happened all over Delhi University also. Very, very good teachers who had taught for years were not confirmed, were kept as ad hoc teachers, and now
they're jobless.
They're jobless, but their jobless is one thing, but the people who have come in their place have no clue how to teach. So there's that. So the change in faculty is one thing. 2, in DU, this has started. In JNU, not yet, but it will start, which is the implementation of the National Education Policy, which has a very clear agenda. It has actually 2 aims. One is to saffronize education. It's an RSS document. And 2 is to promote, to end the system of public universities and to introduce a kind of very neoliberal regime. And in order to produce labor which is conveniently useful for a neoliberal economy. So, for example, one of the statements in the National Education Policy is, we are training our students to have 3 or 4 jobs in a lifetime. This is something they're proudly boasting about, which means that you're going to produce young people whose education will equip them to fit in here or there at a minimum level of education, so that wherever the economy needs them, they can be slotted. So there will be mass laying offs, and then there'll be some hiring, but the hiring and firing is going to actually be of a set of people who will not have anything else with them, right? They will not have any other options. So when an education policy says our goal is to train young people to have whole 3 to 4 jobs in a lifetime, you're telling us that they cannot expect stability. There will be no institutions. You cannot expect a livelihood from one job. And when they say 3 or 4 jobs in a lifetime, do they mean at one time? It's quite possible that one job will not be enough to give you
4 jobs at one time is tough. Maybe,
2 jobs.
Yeah,
They
2
need
jobs
to-
even is tough.
No, it's tough, but I
Yeah.
think that's the kind of thing they have in mind. So you change the faculty, you change the syllabus so that there is absolutely no serious work being done. Thirdly, you fill up time with innumerable classes and assignments. And you must have been reading, it's even now been reported in the mainstream media, Delhi University students are staggering, and teachers, but they're staggering under the weight of endless classes, continuous assignments. And it's very clear the point is to stop students and teachers from having any time to think or to do any critical thinking. It's just a very low level of education, but packed, you see.
So this is a RSS dream coming true, because this is what they want. This is what they always
It's not a
wanted.
dream, it's an agenda.
I mean, dream.
It's an agenda, they're fulfilling it.
Yeah.
The NEP is no doubt, I have no doubt that the RSS has very
Do you see any
serious
signs of pushback? Because, I remember the control over the history syllabus, that was one of their, key points, in the 80s, 90s, this was. So is it now that, they have free run and they can do pretty much whatever they want?
It's not that there is no pushback, but it is that there is no, the power is in their hands. So when it is decided, for example, there is a university in this city, I will not name it, where the Vice Chancellor has decided that PhD examiners will be appointed by them, by the Vice Chancellor. This makes no sense, right? The supervisor usually, in most universities in India, the supervisor sends a panel of 5 or 6 names. 2 or 3 of those are selected according to the rules.
The PhD supervisor of the...
not supervisor, examiners. Examiners. I'm sorry. I meant examiners. So the supervisor decides the examiners. The supervisor gives a list of examiners which is discussed in the center. So there are levels and levels, and finally 5 are empaneled and 2 of them are selected by an academic council. This Vice Chancellor has decided to appoint their own examiners, and those examiners have no clue of how to examine. In fact, they're meant not to have any clue about. So if there's for example, if there's a study of 5 biographies, let's say 5 biographies of women, let's say, this is just an example. It goes to, so this is from a broadly cultural studies field. It goes to someone who teaches in a home science department of some university. And that one of the comments that comes back is, the sample size is too small. What does that mean? This is a study of 5 biographies. Do you mean to, is it a statistical study? This person has no clue.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is that there is a complete destruction of the possibility of critical thinking. There is a destruction of any kind of serious work. The MPhil has been ended. So the idea is, and then there's a so-called 4-year BA program which is already collapsing before our eyes. That 4th year, if you've been hearing about it, it's even that has reached the mainstream.
You mean most students are not opting for the 4th year? Or?
No, it's not the opting for the 4th year. The 4th year involves a ridiculous regime of writing a dissertation in 3 months or some short period of time, and then they have to produce a video based on that. They have to publish out of that. These ideas are coming up not from academics. No serious academic would think a thesis can be written by a 4th year BA student with a video and a publication, So what I'm saying is these are just, it's a combination of illiteracy and motivated malice.
Well, that's quite a deadly cocktail.
It's a deadly cocktail. So this is what is happening to universities.
So if this is what is happening in JNU and Delhi University, we can only,
and other universities.
Other universities are... So what about state governments? Are they able to resist any changes?
Some state governments have, I think. I think Kerala government has taken a fairly firm stand. I've not been following in depth, but I've been reading Karnataka government took some kind of a stand. But what happens is that I'm not sure. So you were saying, is there no pushback? When it's happening at such high levels, how do you push back against a vice chancellor deciding I will decide examiners for all PhD theses? How do you push back against that? Because we must remember, actually, and this is something to remember, that the university system was never democratic, really, never.
There were always
Even
issues.
before.
It was not as
It
if
was
they-
not just issues,
Yeah.
the structure is such that the vice chancellor has the final say. It has always been the case.
No, but there was at least dialogue.
Only, yeah.
I mean, you may have your differences of
No, what
opinion.
I'm saying
Yeah.
is that system lends itself to take over very easily.
Yeah.
So now that the RSS is in control, they're able to take it over by appointing their peoples.
You mean the structures that they've inherited make it easy?
Make it easier. Because in JNU, which was very democratic, JNU was a very rare space. It was very democratic, but it was permitted to be democratic. Delhi University also, there were these like from the bottom up kind of, college teachers would discuss syllabi. It would go up, it would go up. There was a structure in place, but all that depended on the vice chancellor permitting that. And so the system itself needs to, it's not that a democratic system has been destroyed, but that democracy was possible under certain circumstances, but that is now no longer possible.
I mean, today, if you go with a list of demands or students go from, say, a particular ideological, bent, you would imagine that they would be sort of, laughed out of the room, or even if they didn't go get into the room, probably.
No, it's see, if they go with an ideological bent, they should be thrown out. So I don't think that is the issue. Any kind of demands or
I meant from all organizations come from a certain ideology.
No, what I mean is that this is what they would like to say, that the resistance to their destruction of the university is coming from an ideological perspective. It is not coming from an ideological perspective, because you have a whole bunch of people who are not only different views within the left, but non-left. There is, after all, a non-left resistance to Hindu Rashtra and RSS. There's a non-left resistance as well, right? There are people who are just serious academics and who just want to build good liberals who want to build or save the university. The point is that, for example, readings are being removed from Delhi University syllabi. Topics are being removed by people who are there just to who have no clue about the cause.
They're probably looking at individuals.
They're looking at individual names, and they're removing people with Muslim names. They're removing in the reading list. They're removing titles which have words like Dalit or so on. They're just going by that because they are illiterates. They are there to enforce the RSS Brahminical perspective, and they think. So this is where I think it's not going to work. It's not really possible to push back in a formal way because these things are just carried on over our heads. It's like the election commission is behaving today. It's exactly like that. It's just over our heads. They're just going to do it. So it's not that there's no pushback. But I think where they're wrong is if they think that students learn everything in the classroom. If they think that, because we never thought that. We didn't think that students learn everything in the classroom. They learn from life, they learn from politics, they learn from interacting with one another, they learn from their own experience. So if you're told that this was an amazing culture, that the so-called Hindu culture was just beautiful and fair, which Dalit is going to accept that? Which woman is going to accept that? They know the lives they lead under this cultural formation. So if they think that they're going to produce what they will achieve is, of course, the end of the university. But I don't think that means the end of learning. And we are definitely going through a very dark phase. I don't think we should underplay the destruction, what this destruction means.
Right. So I also want to ask you, about a piece that you wrote in Kafila, where you mentioned that it should be recognized that India is a country of multiple minorities and there is no one religious community in India. And you also say that Hindutva is the latest stage in the millennia-old attempt to produce one. And the claim of decolonizing is a cover for a recolonizing project. So I want to, ask you a couple of things on this. So when you mean multiple minorities, is that something which the Hindutva brigade doesn't like, or is it something which bothers them? I mean, what
do you think?
I mean, I have my own views, but since,
What I mean is
I'm the one who's asking the questions, so if you,
No, I mean it's such a rhetorical question. Of course, they hate the idea that it's a country of multiple minorities. What I mean by that, it's actually it's also in my new book, which was published in 24. What I'm saying is something actually B.R. Ambedkar said. So it's not that I'm saying something very original. I'm drawing from what he said. But the fact is that there is no such thing as a Hindu majority, legally also. So let's set aside Dr. Ambedkar. Let us just look at the legal definition of Hindu. And we all know, but I don't think we understand the full import of this, that the legal definition of Hindu is all those who are not Muslim, Christian, or Parsi. There is no positive definition of the term Hindu, because there is not one single practice you can pick out which you can say that all Hindus perform or believe in. There are meat-eating Hindus, there are non-meat-eating Hindus.
No, say the RSS, BJP would say all Hindus now worship Lord Ram.
Well, they don't, right?
Yeah,
They don't.
They can say that.
So what they say is one thing, and this is the kind of thing Savarkar did also in Essentials of Hindutva. Everybody in Bharatvarsh celebrates Holi. No, we don't. Everybody celebrates Raksha Bandhan. No, we don't. So he just said it, and that was part of his Hindu nation building, agenda. So there is the legal definition of Hindu, even the RSS cannot deny. And if we tell the RSS, come up with one thing, for example, Ram, and do a survey of the country and show us that 80% of this country believes that Ram is the primary god. They won't be able to do it. Not unless they carry it out with violence, which we know they're very capable of. But my point is that legally, this is the case, because it is actually a collection of multiple communities with multiple beliefs. And it has been the Brahminical agenda from the Puranas onward. So there's been a break, obviously. In modernity, there's been a break with the Hindutva project. It's not exactly the same project, but and there's been a lot of work on what that break has been. But I was interested in just tracing the continuity. And the continuity appears to be this, and this is also based on the work of many, many, many scholars, that the attempt is to assimilate the non-Brahminical into the Brahminical fold in some different kinds of gods, etc., are incorporated by building these kind of familial relationships. Somebody's made into somebody's wife, somebody's made into somebody's child, etc. So assimilation is one way from the Puranas onwards. Marginalization is another way, extermination is another way. So there are multiple ways in which, so when they talk about ghar vapsi, there's no vapas. There's no vapas. Vapas means you're going back. What you're doing is you're converting Adivasis into Hinduism and resisting their conversion into any other religion, calling any other conversion as false. So when I say multiple minorities, that's what I mean, that there is no Hindu majority in this country. We are a country of multiple minorities, and that's a good thing. Brahminical Hinduism has its place. Please believe in it if you want. That's up to you. But everybody is not, doesn't have a place there. Dalits don't have a place there. Most women don't. Look at the Uttarakhand Civil Code. The Uttarakhand Civil Code shows us exactly the place of women, the place of minorities. So they obviously don't want to accept.
And you also, this claim of decolonization is a cover for a recolonization project. Yeah. So maybe you could explain and expand a little bit on that.
Yeah. See, they had started, Hindutva started for a while, started using this idea of the decolonial imagination and so on. And they are using an idea that comes from a very different space. So decoloniality, terms like decoloniality, decolonizing, etc., come from a anti-ethno-nationalist space, actually. It comes from Latin America. It comes from a very different space. When they use the term decolonization, when the Hindu right, and the right wing globally is using the idea of decolonizing, what they are trying to do is they're trying to they say that they're attacking Western hegemony and replacing it with an indigenous idea. But Brahmanism is not the indigenous idea of this land. So what they're doing is actually, so what I mean by that is that it's a de-Westernizing project, but superficially. It's not entirely de-Westernizing, because the idea of the nation is Western, the idea of the nuclear bomb is Western. So a lot of this kind of ethno-nationalism is very Western. But there's a superficial de-Westernizing project and an attempt to replace it with the Brahminical elite. So it's a replacing of a Western elite, Western elite ideas with a Brahminical idea. So when they say Indian knowledge system, for example, Indian knowledge, it should be Indian knowledge systems. But they are, even when they talk about that, they are really talking about Brahminical ideas. Sanskrit. That's all they talk about. They allow some idea of Buddhism, but they don't at all take into account the fact that this is a heterogeneous space with heterogeneous multiple knowledge systems, and with all their claims to Indian knowledge systems, what are they doing to, for example, the people of Nicobar, the indigenous people of Nicobar? Their language is not Indian knowledge. Their knowledges of ecology are not Indian knowledge. No, they're not. So it's very obvious that what they're really doing is using the notion of decolonizing. They're recolonizing. It's a recolonizing Brahminical move. That's what I'm trying to say.
But internationally, I mean, of course, things have gone wrong between Mr. Modi and Mr. Trump and India and the US. But they're Mr. Modi and, his government were very much in favor of the United States in every which way possible. So how does this marry with the, decolonizing project? Because there are a number of statements,
Absolutely. Good question. No, that's really, when I say good question, I mean exactly. It shows up the hypocrisy of the so-called decolonizing project, because you're basically ready to be the little junior partner, least powerful junior partner to Trump. Where does your decolonizing go then?
Or welcoming him at this big Ahmedabad stadium.
Exactly.
This is all signs of a very, very craven kind of approach.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It exposes the hypocrisy completely.
So I want to end by asking you the final question is that where do you see India going in the next 5 years? Because the trends are very clear. You mentioned the election commission, the complete marginalization of institutions, to some extent, the judiciary as well, election commission, universities, government institutions, auditor generals, all these, everybody is fallen in line, more or less. There is some resistance, some YouTube journalism, so, people writing who are willing to stick their necks out, sends them to jail on occasion. So how do you see, because whatever it is, however much you critique, the BJP, RSS, they're pretty good at holding on to power and, implementing their agenda.
They're good in the way that fascist regimes are good. That is, they use the coercive apparatus of the state. They buy over Sam Dam Dand Bhed, right? They use all these four to take over institutions, etc. But my point, the point that I would like to conclude on is that what I see in the next 5 years is people's resistance, and that's what I see every single day. Now, whether that resistance will add up, whether that resistance will succeed, all that is not very clear, obviously. But look at what happened with the Aravalis. Right? Look at the massive resistance. Look at the farmers' resistance. Look at the resistance to Sengar, the rapist, being about to be released. And the Supreme Court cited public dissent when that was rethought. So I actually see resistance. So I'm going to focus on that. The resistance may or may not be at the level of institutions. It may or may not succeed at the level of institutions, but it is certainly there at every level. And we'll have to see where the resistance goes, but it's not going to be easy for them. They're being mocked on social media. Their ministers are being mocked. The ministers speak with such arrogance that the BJP minister who talked about the Aravalis, and he said, "हमारे 3 पहाड़ हैं, हमारे 3 पहाड़ हैं, मोदी जी, योगी जी और अमित शाह जी। और रहे अरावली की बात, अरावली तो पहाड़ है, उसको हम सीमेंट कर देंगे, गरीबों का काम आएगा." This was what he said. And this is circulating in social media where he's being mocked and there's so much anger. So, there's also a huge level of exposure at a different level.
But they keep winning elections.
I will say 3 letters. ECI.
That's it.
That's it.
So you think that the election system has been, in a sense, subverted by...
Absolutely. And the SIR is a process of mass disenfranchisement. That is very clear. So they keep winning elections shows that they have sewn the system up tight.
It doesn't necessarily reflect their popularity.
It does not reflect their popularity.
Well, on that note, Nivedita Menon, thank you so much for talking to SpeakEasy.
Thank you.
I wish you a happy retirement in troubled times, and I do hope that we will be able to speak to you again. Thank you so much.